Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom Bracha and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Brachos Daf Samach Beis. We're right on top of the Amud. It says the Gemara Tani, we learned in the Brisa, Omer Bekiva. Pam Achas, one time, Nichnasti, Achar Rabbi Shua, Lebeis HaKisei. One time I followed Rabbi Shua into the Beis HaKisei, into the bathroom. I need to observe him to see his mode of behavior in order to learn from him and to derive halachos regarding proper conduct in the Beis HaKisei. And indeed, says the Gemara, I observed and I learned from him three things. Firstly, I learned that when one relieves himself of solid, he doesn't do so facing east-west. Rashi explains this incident took place in the territory of Yehuda in Eretz Yisrael. And as we learned earlier, in certain places in that territory, one is meant to face away, not east-west, which is in the direction of Yerushalayim, but rather to relieve himself north-south. So indeed, I saw and I observed that he was careful to turn away from Yerushalayim, and he was not nifne mizrach u'ma'ariv, ella rather tzafim v'darim, north and south. And I learned one is not meant to do so standing up, ella miyushav, rather sitting. The third thing I learned is one doesn't wipe himself with his right hand, ella b'smo, rather with his left. So there are three halachos, three proper modes of behavior that I learned from observing him. Homeli ben Azai. So Ben Azai challenged Rabbi Kiva. Ad kan, to this extent, he asked the panecha b'rabecha, you've displayed brazenness to your teacher, to your Rebbe. You went and observed him under these circumstances. It's inappropriate. Amar lei, so Rabbi Kiva responded, yes, Torah, this also is Torah, and I need to learn it. Torah tells a person how to behave in any circumstance. Even mundane activities are meant to be imbued with spirituality. Therefore, I need to observe him, even under these circumstances, in order to know how one is meant to conduct himself. Continues the Gemara, Tanya ben Azai Yomer. Pam achas, one time, Nechnasti achar Rabbi Kiva, Lebeis HaKisei. I followed Rabbi Kiva into the Beis HaKisei. And I learned from him three things. Firstly, I love tzafim v'darim. Secondly, sitting. We don't wipe with the right, with the left. So these are the three things that I observed and I learned from Rabbi Kiva. Now, even though Rabbi Kiva already announced previously that he had seen these things by Rabbi Shua, so why wasn't this enough for Ben Azai? Why did he need to observe it himself? Could be that Ben Azai wanted to make sure that Rabbi Kiva himself conducted himself accordingly. It wasn't just that he was repeating over the mode of conduct of Rabbi Shua. He wanted to see if his Rebbe indeed actually does it in practice. And indeed, he observed that they did so. So this was the story of Ben Azai following Rabbi Kiva. Humbly Rabbi Yehuda. So now Rabbi Yehuda challenged Ben Azai. Ad kan, he asked panecha b'rabecha, up until this point, to this extent, you amaze panim, you brazen regarding your Rebbe, and went to observe him under those circumstances. Amar lei, so he responded the same way as Rabbi Kiva responded before. Torah v'luma denitzarech, it's also Torah, I need to learn it. Continues with another story. Rav Kahana went in, Gana Tusei Purye, he went and lied underneath the bed. Tusei Purye, underneath the bed, the Rav, of Rav. Shamei, he overheard the Sach, that he conversed, V'sachak, and he was expressing himself with frivolity, and then proceeded, V'asatzrachav, and had relations with his wife. So he proceeded the Tashmish with light conversation, with some measure of frivolity. And this is what Rav Kahana overheard. Amar lei, so Rav Kahana called out in response, Dami pumi de Abba. Abba is a respectable term to Rav. And he said, Dami pumi de Abba. The mouth of Rav appears to be, it's similar, it sounds like like it hasn't tasted the taste of a soup. Meaning, You've behaved with a little bit of you've displayed an excessive amount of desire approaching marital relations. It seemed inappropriate to him that he would approach Tashmish with such a desire, with frivolity. Omar lei, so Rav responded, Kahana, Hakahana Hacha, Kahana's here. Kahana, Hacha'at, Kahana. This was Rav Kahana. Kahana, Hacha'at, you're here? Poik, go out. The lav oirach ara, it's inappropriate for you to be present now. Omar lei, so Rav Kahana responded in the same way, Toirahi, v'luma den itzarech. It's Torah. This also is something I need to learn. V'luma den itzarech. I need to learn it. I need to learn the proper mode of conduct during marital relations, during Tasha Shamita. Continues the Gemara, B'pneima en mekan chamin. We learned before that we're not meant to wipe with the right hand. So what is the reason for that? Mipneima en mekan chamin ela b'sma. Amar Rava, the reason is as follows: B'pnei sha'aTorah nitna b'imin, because the Torah was handed to us with the right hand of Hashem. So Yamin, the right hand, contains a special chashivas, importance, its significance, and therefore we're not meant to degrade it and using it in this fashion. Shenemar, as we see, from the hand of Hashem was handed the Torah, which is nimshal to fire. Rava bar Bachana Omar, another reason, because the right hand is close to the mouth. Rashi says, Regilin, we're accustomed to lohishita lepet, to reach to the mouth with our right hand. Apparently he's speaking about, for instance, feeding ourselves. We use our right hand to put food in our mouth. And as the Farshim explain, since the right hand is there to feed us, to provide us with our sustenance, our life, it's inappropriate to downgrade the right hand and to use it to connect it, to relate it to the waste, which is being ejected from the body, from the guf. So the same hand that's providing life is not meant to be used in that fashion. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon Lagashamar Pnei Kishakosha but tefillin, because with the right hand we tie our tefillin. Reb Nachman Yitzchak Amar Pnei Shemar but Tamei Torah, because with our right hand we display Tamei Torah. Rashi says this was a unique way of displaying, of signaling the nekudas of the words, the tone of voice, the Tami Hanegina of a Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. This was a traditional way of moving your fingers around, moving your hands around, and expressing the proper tunes of Torah in that manner. So therefore, since the right hand is used for that exalted activity of Tamei Torah, we're not meant to degrade it and use it to be mekaneach with it. Now, in halakha it's brought down that a lefty would have the reverse situation, since he's using his left hand to feed himself, to tie his tefillin, etc. So in that case, his right hand has the status of our left, and therefore he would wipe himself with his right hand. Says Tanoi, this is dependent on Machlekes Tanaim. The reason why we are mekaneach b'smoil, because he eats with the right hand. Because he writes with his right hand. Tamei Torah, because he uses his right hand to display the tamim, the tune, the tamei nagina of Torah. So in summary, regarding the proper behavior in a Beis HaKisei, nifnin tzafan v'darim, when we are in the section, territory of Yehuda, we're not meant to face the direction of Yerushalayim, but rather to expose ourselves, tzafan v'darim, north-south, is meant to be miyushav, sitting down, and mekanchin, to be wiped with smo with the left hand. What is the reason for that? Why ein mekanchin mimin? We have several reasons. Number one, ha-Torah nitna mimin, Torah is handed with the right hand. The right hand is kroiv lepeh, it is close to the mouth, it's used to feed ourselves. We tie the tefillin with the right hand, we show with it the Tamei Torah, and we write with it. Therefore the Yemin has a special chashivas, and we're meant to use the smoil for kinuach. One who is tzanua, who is modest and hides himself, doesn't expose himself unnecessarily in a Beis HaKisei, he conducts himself quietly, without fanfare. Nitzel mishleisha dvar. He's saved from 3 phenomena. Min ha-nechashim, snakes, min-akrab, and scorpions. Because since he doesn't make a racket in there, he doesn't provoke them, and apparently the snakes and scorpions were found in their Beis HaKiseis in those days. So one who comes in and out quietly, to instigate these creatures, and he's saved from harm. Umin ha-mazikim, from these evil powers, because once again, since he's bitznius and he conducts himself with respect, so the mazikim don't bother him. Some say his dreams are miyushav, are settled on him. He doesn't experience disturbing dreams because the mazikim don't come disturb him. A person who's tsanua, who's modest, doesn't act with gaiva, with haughtiness. So the mazikim, they don't feel threatened by him, and they don't bother him. Says Umar, who Beis HaKisei, there was a Beis HaKisei Tveria that was so infested with evil powers, with the shadim, with the mazikim, up to the point that although ordinarily when 2 people enter a place, they're protected from mazikim, but in this place it was different. Even if 2 people went in there together, even during the day, mitzigi, they would be harmed by the abundance of the powerful mazikim that were present there. Continues the Gemara of Ami, Rav Asi, of Aile, Vechad Chad, L'chudei. Rav Ami, Rav Asi, who were great tzaddikim, they weren't afraid. They would go into this heavily infested Beis HaKisei. They would go in, have Aile, Vechad Chad, L'chudei. They would go in one at a time, V'loi mitziki, and they were not harmed. How did you do that? Loi mistafisu? Are you not afraid of the Shadim Mazikim? Amrlei, no. Anon Kabbalah Gamrinan. We have a tradition that if we conduct ourselves appropriately in the Beis HaKisei, that protects us from harm. Kabbalah the Beis HaKisei tzniusa v'shtikusa. The Kabbalah regarding the proper behavior in the Beis HaKisei is tzniusa, with modesty, shtikusa, quietly, and this protects a person from the powers that are present there. Kabbalah the Yisuri. What is the Kabbalah tradition that one is meant to have regarding Yisurim, afflictions? How is one meant to respond appropriately? Shtikusa, be quiet, don't complain. Rachmi, and ask Hashem for Rachmanis. Continues the Gemara, Abaye, Meravile Ima, his mother would raise Imra, a sheep, Lemel Bahadei Beis HaKisei, to accompany him into the Beis HaKisei. Apparently, the fact that he had an accompaniment, this would serve to protect him from the Shadim Mazikim. Says the Gemara, why a sheep? Why didn't she raise for him a goat? Since the shade of the Beis HaKisei, Rashi says, is equated to similar to a sire, to a goat, as the pasuk says, Se'ira miraktusham. So therefore, they wanted to avoid any association with the shadim of the Beis HaKisei, and instead of giving him a goat, a sire, she would give him a sheep. Says the Gemara, Rava, Mikhamed Avi Reisha, before he became the Rosh HaYeshiva, the head of the academy, Mekagishale Rabbas of Chizda, his wife, who was the daughter of Chizda, she would shake noisily, Amagoize, a nut, some nut, Bilakana, she would shake a nut in a container of copper to make some noise in order to somehow serve as a protection from the mazikim. Apparently, not only if 2 people enter, they're protected, but even if it's one person with some noise going on outside, that's also enough of an accompaniment, an indication that there's somebody else there, and it serves as a protection. This was before he became the Rosh HaYeshiva, so this was sufficient. However, Basa the Malach, after he became the Rosh HaYeshiva, now he was of a more prominent person, and Rashi says he needs more shimur, he needs more protection, because the mazikim and the shadim are now envious of him, they're jealous of him, and just like they're jealous of ordinary Talmid Chacham, certainly a person who is a Rosh HaYeshiva of such high prominence, and therefore he required a higher measure of protection. So what did his wife do? Instead of shaking the nut, Avle Kapsa, she made for him a little window where she could extend her hand through it. Uman chalayad areshin, she would place her hand on his head in the Beis HaKisei, so she would be outside and do this, protect him, put her hand on him so that he will have that shimur, that protection, that accompaniment, which would protect him from the forces. Continues Gemara, Amarullah. Achori hageder nifna biyad. If one is behind a fence, he can relieve himself immediately. He doesn't have to be marchik, distance himself anymore. So he can be mafna. When we speak about mafna in this blot, it's speaking about relieving from solid waste. So once he's behind a geder and he's hidden, in that case, since his revealed portion is hidden, that's okay. Ubebika, but if he's in an open area, valley, and at that point, he has to distance himself to the extent that his friends shouldn't hear him passing wind. It's not sneistic. So once again, according to Ula, if he's behind the fence, that's sufficient. If he's in an open area, he has to be marking himself. He has to distance himself up to the point that he is not hurt. He learned differently. If he's behind the fence, if he's behind the fence, then he must make sure that nobody hears the sound. It's not enough that he's hidden. It must be that ein chaver shemea the sound. Ubebika, but if he's in an open area, then he must distance himself much more. It needs to be that nobody can actually see him. Says more Meisvei. We have a Brachos which tells us otherwise. That is not necessary. One doesn't have to go that far away that he's out of sight completely. Yoitzin Pesach Beis Habad. The Brachos here is speaking about one who has employees that are crushing his olives in the olive press, and he's trying to do it with tahara, impurity, and all of them there have cleansed himself in preparation for this olive press, and let's say they need to go out to relieve themselves. Says the Brisa, they can go out, Yoitzim Pesach Beis Habad, and they can go relieve themselves behind the fence. They remain tar, they retain their status. We don't have to be concerned that perhaps they became tamei. So we see here clearly that once, as soon as he's behind the fence, that is sufficient to relieve oneself. And one does not need to distance himself further than that. So this is a contradiction to Isi Bar Nasan, who tells us that even Achari Geder, one must ascertain that he's not hurt. The Brisa tells us that Achari Geder is enough, is sufficient. It says regarding Taharis, Chacham were more lenient, since this involves maintaining the purity of the olives. Therefore, the Chacham allowed him to relieve himself as soon as he gets behind the fence, so that he doesn't stray away and perhaps contract Tumah. Therefore, this is a special leniency in this circumstance. But ordinarily, one must make sure that he is at a distance, that he cannot be hurt. Tashma, we have another right from this Brisa. Kama yurchaku v'yitorin. How far can these laborers distance themselves and still retain the tahara? This is again regarding the laborers who are working in the olive press. Says the Brisa, Kedei shehi ro'eyu, that the person sees them. As long as he sees them, as long as the person that is tar, as long as the employer sees them, then we assume that they are still tar. So again, this is speaking about going out of the olive press, and the Brisa tells us they cannot go further, they cannot go past the point where the employer, where the chaver who is pressing these olives, and he's making sure that all his employees are also tar. So they must make sure they stay within his eyesight. Says Rashi, if they need to relieve themselves, apparently they're not going to go past that point. So it seems pretty obvious that they're allowed to relieve themselves even if they're within eyesight of the owner. And this is a steer to Isa Bar Nasan tells us that one may not relieve himself if he's still anywhere within the eyesight of somebody else. Says more here once again, Shanu echlet taharos akil rabbanon. Regarding taharos, the Chacham were more lenient in order to maintain the tahara of the purity of the olives. Therefore, the Chacham were mekel and allowed one to be lenient and relieve oneself even if he's within the re'iyah, within the field of vision of his friend. Says Rav Ashi Amar, it's not a kasha. It was never a kasha on Isi bar Nosson. Why? What does Isi mean when he says that one must distance himself up to the point that his friend doesn't see him? What do you mean when he said that? He simply meant he meant to say that his friend shouldn't see the revealed portion of the person. Certainly, him himself, that's okay. A person can see him as long as he doesn't see the piruah, the exposed portion of the person. And therefore, it's not a kasha from the Brisa. The Brisa is also speaking about this type of case. That the person is still seen by the owner, but not his revealed portion. His exposed portion is hidden from view. If so, certainly this will be acceptable even according to Isai bar Nosson. Continues the Gemara, who's Sabdana? There was a person who presented a eulogy. The Nochas came to Rav Nachman, who said his hesped in front of Rav Nachman, the president of Rav Nachman. Omar, he said regarding one who passed away, as follows: this person who passed away was a tzonua, was modest in his in his behavior. Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman challenged the person who gave the eulogy. Did you ever follow into the Beis HaKisei and therefore you know v'yadat tzonua eloi? Do you know if he's a tzonua or not? The Sani, as we learned, ein kairin tzonua. The title tzonua is only applied ella lemisha tzonua Beis HaKisei. So that's a prerequisite, that's a condition to receive the title of tzonua. So how do you know? Says Rav Nachman, my nafka lemine. Why was Rav Nachman so concerned whether this was entirely accurate or not? Says Rav Mishum Desana, because we learned, just as they in heaven they give a retribution, they punish the Mesim on account of their deficiencies. The same way they on Ephraim they punish the ones who eulogize falsely, inaccurately, and the ones that acknowledge them. Therefore, Rav Nachman wanted to spare himself a punishment, and he wanted to make sure that the Saptan, the eulogizer, was properly informed, and he was basing his words on reality. Tana Rabban, Ezer Tzanua, who is a true Tzanua? Zehanifna Balayla, one who relieves himself at night, the same place that he does so during the day. Just as he distances himself by day from people, he goes out of the area, out of the inhabited area, so too at night, even if there aren't too many people around, nevertheless he conducts himself with the high degree of tznius, and he goes to the same place as he would do during the day. Says more, is that necessary? Eini? Va'amar Ravida Marav, is that so? We learned, Ravida Rav taught us, La'olam yanig adam asatzim, one should be accustomed Shachas Ravis to relieve himself in the morning and at night. Why? Kadesh lo yitzorech l'srachik. If he does so in the morning when it's still dark, at night when there are no people around, and he is not seen by the public, in that case, that's the best time, because he doesn't need to be marking himself, he doesn't need to distance himself. Since either there are a few people around, or because it's not seen, it's still dark. So we see that it's not necessary to find the same place at night as during the day. V'su, says the Gemara, another kasha, Rava, the conduct of Rava was as follows: B'imama, by day have a ozla at mil. By day he would walk until a mill to get out of the area. Ubalayla, at night he didn't do that. Amalei l'shama, he told the servant, Pulling l'duchta b'chayva the masa, go find me a area clear of people in the street of the city. V'chein amalei Rav Zeh l'shama, Rav Zeh told his servant, Chazi, go take a look, man dika chay beis chavraya, go see if there's anybody behind my friend's house, the bein lifni, so I would like to relieve myself. So we see that it's not necessary to distance himself at night as he does during the day. So it's not a prerequisite for being a tzanua. Says more, you're right. Don't say that at night it must be in the same location as during the day. That one who is a tzanua, he's meant to relieve himself at night in the same manner, in the same fashion as during the day, not to reveal himself unnecessarily, to do it in a sitting position, not a standing position, and that is a tzanua. Rav Ashi Amar, no, afilu teimu b'makom. Even if you maintain that the title Tsanua is only applied to one who relieves himself in the same place as by day, what he meant was as follows. What he meant was that he should hide behind a corner. He shouldn't do it in a revealed area. Certainly he doesn't have to go that far as he does during the day to distance himself from people, etc. He can do it even closer by, but he should do it behind the Karen Zavis. Behind, if he has the availability of a Karen Zavis, of a corner where he can hide behind it, that is a true Tsanua. Gufa, we learned before, a person should accustom himself to relieve himself Shacharis morning at night, Kadei, so that so he wouldn't have to distance himself. Tani Namiyacha, we learned a Bryce as well, Benazi Omer, Hashkim V'tzei, get up in the morning and relieve himself, Ha'erev V'tzei, do so at night, Kadei Shlei Tisrachik, so that you don't need to be marching yourself. Mashmeish V'shev, you should feel and massage the openings, and which facilitates the relieving, and then sit down. But don't do it in reverse. Don't first sit down and then feel. One does that. He's availing himself to kshafim, to the effect of sorcery, even if kshafim are done far away in aspamya. They will arrive on him. So it's dangerous to conduct himself in that manner. If he forgot the order, he sat down and then did the mishmish. What is the remedy to protect oneself from harm? Says the when he gets up, he should say the following text. Loyli, it shouldn't affect me, you shouldn't have any control over me. Loy sachim, loy sachtim, not the kshafim, not this kshafim, not those kshafim. Loy hani, v'lo mehani, not all of them. Loy hani, not all of them. Loy mehani, not even a portion of them. Loy charshi, the charshi, not kshafim that come from male sorcerers. Loy charshi, the charash sasa, that come from female sorcerers. Tani ben azoyim. I'll call mishkav shchav. Sit on any type of lie, on any type of surface, chutz min karka, except for the ground. Brachos said because it's cold, so don't lie on the ground. Don't go to sleep on the ground. Make sure there's some sort of something in between, a mattress, etc. I'll call moishav shape. Sit on anything chutz min karka except for a beam, because you might fall off it. Amar Shmuel sheina b'mud shachar. Taking a nap, sleeping in the early morning. It's so beneficial to one's health to sleep right at daybreak. It's like galvanizing metal. It's a good conclusion to the night. Relieving oneself in the Amud HaShachar time is also it's beneficial to one's health, like taking a metal and galvanizing it. Kapara would sell words, advice with dinarim, meaning he would go ahead and announce these good pieces of advice, these precious words of advice. Adekafnes echol. A person should eat. Adekafnes, while you're still hungry, when your appetite is still there. Don't wait until the appetite dissipates. At that point, the food won't have the same positive effect on you. So eat while you're hungry. Adetzaches, while you're still thirsty, have your drink. Aderascha kederach, while you need to relieve yourself, shfoich, go and relieve yourself. Do it immediately. As soon as you feel you need to go relieve yourself. Adrascha kederach, until while your pot is still cooking up. That is the appropriate time. Don't prolong. Don't hold yourself back. Karna karyim eroimi. If you hear the sound of a keren, of a some sort of instrument announcing. Beroimi in Rome as follows: Bar Mazbin Te'eni. If you hear the keren, maybe it's a shofar, announcing in Rome the following announcement: the son Bar Mazbin Te'eni, the son of a fig merchant, Te'eni the Avach Zavin, go sell the figs of your father. If your father is not around, and there's a customer that is available, that's coming to buy the figs, go quickly and sell it while there's a demand. when you pass through the pathways of Mechayza, to go out to the field, so don't gaze not to this side, not to the other side. Why? Dilma Yasvi Nashi. Some have a girsa Dilma Yasvi Inshi. Perhaps there are people sitting there relieving themselves. It's not appropriate to look at them. Rav Safra al Beis HaKisei. Rav Safra entered the Beis HaKisei. Also Rav Abba came along. Nachar le'abava. He coughed as a signal by the doorway. Amalei. So Rav Safra responded, Le'omar, come inside. Basa the Nafak. After he came back out, Amalei. So Rav Abba challenged Rav Safra. He said, Al Hashtalei Alis Seir. You haven't even gone to Seir. V'gamers lachmil to Seir, and you've accustomed yourself. You adopted the practices of Seir, of this nation Seir, who are not sanu on Beis HaKisei. Why did you speak? We're not meant to speak in the Beis HaKisei. Lav hachitnan, haven't we learned in the Mishnah? Medura ha'sesham, there was a fire in the Beis HaMikdash, Beis HaKisei shall cover. There was a Beis HaKisei of honor, of respect and honor. Why was it called the Beis HaKisei shall cover? It was very kvoidei. The cover, the honor, was for the following reason: Motzei no, if one finds it locked, b'yidusha shel adam, so he knows there's somebody in there. Motzei pesuach, if he finds the door open, b'yidusha ein shel adam, he knows there's nobody there, and it's available. Alma, apparently, we're not meant to speak in the Beis HaKisei. Lav ha'erach aru, it's not appropriate to speak in the Beis HaKisei. Therefore, they had the signal to know whether there's somebody there. So why did you go ahead and say Leil Mar? Says the Mavu Savar. Rav Safra thought Mesukanu. He thought that perhaps Rav Safra is Mesukan. He's in danger on account of his desperate need to relieve himself. Therefore, since he thought that Rav Safra was Mesukan, he went out of his way and he actually expressed himself in words in the Beis HaKisei. The Sani of Shimon Omer Amud HaChozer, if one pushes back the solid waste, maybe it's al Nehu Droiken, it can bring a person to the sickness of a Droiken. Seal Nachayz Miraglaim, which are pushed back, maybe it's al Nehu Yiraken. So we see it's dangerous to withhold, and therefore he expressed himself in words, even in the Beis HaKisei. Rabbi Lezer al Beis HaKisei. Rav Lezer went to Beis HaKisei. Asa Parsa, somehow Gersa. Asa Roima, a Roman came in the Dachke. He squeezed him. Come Rav Lezer v'nafak. So Rav Lezer got up and left. Asa Darkoina, a snake came along with Shamte the Karkashed, and went ahead and damaged the Chalchoilus, Rashi says, the rectum of this guy. Rav Lezer called on him, and he proclaimed Ve'etein Adam Tachtecha. The pasuk says, "I will put Adam, a person, instead of you." Atikri Adam, don't read Adam. Edom, a guy, a Roman from Malchus Edom. Hashem replaced Rabbi Lezer with this guy, so that he suffers on account of the snake instead of Rabbi Lezer. Says the Gemara, "V'Amar lahargecha laharogcha v'atachas alecha." So this was David HaMelech calling out to Shaul. We know that David HaMelech was fleeing from Shaul. And the story was that David was hiding in a cave, and while they were in the cave, they noticed that Shaul arrived. He came in there to relieve himself, and David HaMelech resisted the temptation of killing him on the spot. And after this happened, Shaul HaMelech left. So David came out afterwards, and he called out to Shaul, "Look, you came into my domain, into my territory, and I spared you. I could have killed you, and I spared you. I didn't." Says the Gemara, let's understand the verbalization here. V'omar laharokcha. He said, he wanted to kill you. V'atachas alecha. And he had rachmana, so he spared you. Why is he speaking in third term? He did it, he spared. V'omar, v'omarti mi boile. He should have said, I contemplated killing you. V'atochas, he had mercy, he spared you. V'chasti mi boile. He should have said, I spared you, I had mercy on you. So apparently there's a hidden message here. He's explaining the reason, the basis of why he indeed spared him from death. Amar Blessed. Amar David l'Shol. David announced to Shaul as follows. Min Torah, according to the halach and the Torah, ben hariga ata, you're liable to death. You're liable for death. You're a ben hariga. Why? Shari roidaf ata, because you have a din of a roidaf. You're pursuing me. You want to kill me? Va Torah amra. What does it say in the Torah? Ba lahargacha, if one approaches to kill you, hashkim laharga, hasten to kill him first, preempt it. So I could have killed you. Why didn't I? Ella tznius shoysabacha, the tznius, the modesty that I observed in you, hi chasa alecha, that spared you. What exactly was the tznius? Says the Gemara, Mahi desiv ayavai el gidrois hatzoin al haderech v'sham ma'ora v'ayavai shol hasachas raglov. Says the Gemara, Tana, we learned in the Brachos, Geder lefnim geder. Gidrois is a double fence. So the place that Shaul went to, he looked for a place that was hidden from you, a place that was ultra tznius. It was a geder lefnim geder, uma'ar lefnim uma'ar, a cave within a cave. Lahasech, he went to relieve himself, and the pasuk used the word lahasech. Amar Belezer Malamed is come to teach us another element in the tznius of Shaul. Shesichech atzmi kesukah, he carved himself over like a sukkah. So he made sure not to reveal himself unnecessarily, and therefore, when David HaMelech observed this form of behavior, this elevated form of conduct, this royal form of behavior, he had pity on him. He spared him. The Farshim explain that David HaMelech saw tznius in Shaul, and we know that on account of tznius of Shaul, he was zeicha to Esther, to a descendant named Esther HaMalka, who brought an ace on Klal Yisrael. So the Farshim explain, this is what he saw. He saw the tznius in Shaul, which led to a descendant as prominent as Esther HaMalka, and therefore he spared him. The Farshim also explain that although David was in danger, appeared to be in danger since Shaul was pursuing, wanted to kill him. And the Torah tells us that one who is being pursued is meant to preempt and kill the pursuer. So why did David HaMelech spare him? So the Farshim said because David HaMelech was already anointed, and he knew that he was going to survive in any case. So he didn't really consider himself to be in mortal danger. Therefore he spared Shaul HaMelech. But what did he do? The pasuk tells us that he cut off knaf, a corner of the me'il of the cloak of Shaul, and afterwards he displayed it to Shaul. He says, "Look, I have the corner of you beggar. I was so close to you. I could have killed you, and I spared you." Says the Gemara, "Vayokom David vayichrois es knaf hamil shel Shaul balot." He went and he cut off the knaf hamil, the corner of the me'il of Shaul's clothing, balot, quietly in secrecy. Says the Gemara, What was the punishment that David HaMelech endured as a result? One who degrades clothing, as in this case, apparently it was a something inappropriate to cut apart a beged. It was a bizoyan. Soif, he ends up he doesn't derive pleasure and benefit from clothing. Shenemar, as it says, David Zokin b'mayam, when he was older, vayichasu b'abgadim, and they covered him with clothing, and it didn't warm him up. So this was what he suffered subsequent to him being mevazed the begodim, the beggar of Shaul. Continues the Gemara, Im Hashem asischa bi yorach mincha. If Hashem provoked you against me, Omar Belezer, Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu David, Meses Karisali, you refer to me as a provoker. Harei ani mashulcha, as a punishment, as a result of referring to me in this somewhat of a disrespectful manner. Harei mashulcha, I will be marshal you. You will stumble in a halacha, in a very obvious halacha. B'davar shafilu tinoikos shel beis rabban yoignos. Even children in school who learn chumash know this halacha, and you will stumble and transgress it. When you will count the heads of Klal Yisrael, so everybody will give a coin, a machzah shekel, as a kofer nafshi, as a redemption for their nefesh. So we see that when we count Yidden, we're not meant to count them as people, rather they're meant to contribute coins and counter coins. In this case, David HaMelech counted the Yidden, they counted their heads without being careful regarding this halacha. Miyad vayamet Satan al Yisrael, the Satan stood up against Yisrael, and he provoked David. He instigated him to transgress this avera. Because Vayasis says David Bahem Go count Klal Yisrael. And when he went and counted them, he didn't take a kaifer, he didn't take this coin. And as a result, Hashem sent a plague, a dever, from the morning until Eis Moed, until the time of Moed. Says, well, what does this mean? Eis Moed. What exactly is this Eis Moed referring to? Omar Shmuel Sabo Chasne Rav Chanina, the son of Rav Chanina, Mishmei Rav Chanina, the name of Rav Chanina's father-in-law. Eis Moed means Mishcha Shchitas HaTamid. Me'aboker means from the time of Shchitas HaTamid until Ad Shas Rikas, until the time when they would sprinkle the Dam HaTamid. Rabbi Yechon Amar, it was Ad Eis Moed, mean Ad Chatzos Mamish, until Chatzos. And that is Eis Moed, that is the turning point in the day. It begins the new Moed, the new time, the time of afternoon. Vayomer LaMalach HaMashchas Ba. So he told the Malach who was destroying the nation, Rav Amar, Rav. Vayomer LaMalach HaMashchas Ba'am, Rav. So that was the instructions to the Malach. Vayomer LaMalach HaMashchas Ba'am, Rav. So what is Rav referring to? Amar Belez. What did Hashem mean by telling the Malach Rav? Amar LaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMalach. Toili Rav Shebahem. Take from me. Take from them the Rav, the great one. Sheyesh bo lipara mehem kama choves. Take the greatest one, who is valuable. He is prominent and therefore valuable. And by taking him, this will be a repayment for many debts. Toili Rav shebahem sheyesh boy, because within him, because in his value it contains enough lipare mehem kama choves, in order to pay for Klal Yisrael, to be a payment for several debts. Bois Hashah Meis Avisha ben Sruya, who died, Avisha ben Sruya, Sheshachal Grubish Sanhedrin, who is equated to the Roiv of Sanhedrin, and that is the term Rav, the greatest one, and also Rav is a Lashon Roiv. He's equated to the majority of Sanhedrin. It says in more Bahashchis Ra Hashem, when he was Mashchis, Ra Hashem Vayinachem, and he was consoled. It says, well, what does it mean he saw Ra? What did he see? My Ra, Amar Rav, Ra, Yaakov Avinu, he saw Yaakov Avinu. So we see the term Ram by Yaakov Avinu. So in the schus of Yaakov, he spared Klal Yisrael. Shmuel Amar, what did he see? Efreshel Yitzchak Ra, he saw the ash of Yitzchak, which was actually the carbon that Avraham Avinu sacrificed in place of Yitzchak. So the ashes of this carbon is a remes, symbolizes the Mesiras Nefesh of Yitzchak, who actually was willing to give himself up to Hashem as a carbon. Shenemar Lakim Yir Le'aseh, Hashem, it will be seen to him the seh that was brought in the Mizbeach. So the Lashon Yira is applied to this as well. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, what did Hashem see and was consoled? Kesef Kippurim Ra, he saw the money that was contributed in the Midbar. That the money, that you take the money that Klal Yisrael, the Kesef Kippurim, the money of atonement from Klal Yisrael, and the term Kippurim was actually a remes. It denotes that it's meant to be a kapara on the eventual event, on the future event, on the chet that will happen in the time of David HaMelech, when they will require kapara because they will counter without using coins. Rabbi Yechon, what did Hashem see? Beis HaMikdash Ra, D'chsiv Bahar Hashem Yira, Pligi Bar Yaakov, Idi Bar Shmuel Bar Nachmeni. Chad Amar, what did Hashem see? Kesef HaKippurim Ra, he saw the money that was given in the Midbar. V'chad Amar Beis HaMikdash Ra, Mistaver, it's logical to say Command Amar Beis HaMikdash Ra, Shenemar Asher Yomer Hayoim, because it will be said today Bar Hashem Yira, that in Har Hashem will be seen. So we see that the Torah makes reference to today, nowadays, even later generations. The vision of Beis HaMikdash will be seen. When it will be seen? During the time when Hashem will have to use that vision, that Re'iyah of the Beis HaMikdash, to stop the tzara, the misfortune, the tragedy that was occurring to Klal Yisrael. Continues the Gemara, Le'ikanis Adam La'Harbayis V'makloi. One doesn't enter the Harbayis with his staff, with his shoes on his feet, with his money pouch, and also he doesn't make the Harbayis into kapandraya, a shortcut. My kapandraya, Amar Rav kapandraya kishma. indeed is a shortcut. So in the certain languages, kapandraya means a shortcut, and that's what it means. It's disrespectful to walk through the Har Bayis as a shortcut. For Rav Chana bar Adam Shel Samar Dar Mori Omar, kapandraya is actually a acronym, a combination of a few words. Kamad Omar, like one says, Kamad Omar Inish, like a person says, Adema Kifna Adori. Instead of going around Dori, the row of homes, Eilba, let me walk through here, let me do it as a shortcut to avoid going around and around. So Kapandraya is a short version of saying Adema Kifna Adori Eilba. Omar Nacham Omar Abavu Hanichnas Beis HaKnesses Amanas Sheloi LaSois Kapandraya. If one enters a Beis HaKnesses with the intention not to use it as a shortcut, he's going in for a different purpose. So once he's in there, Mutar LaSois Kapandraya, he can continue and use it as a shortcut. Ravo Amar Imhoya Shvil Mikari Mutar. If it was a pathway, if there was a pathway that existed there before the Beis HaKnesses was built, Mutar, then indeed he may continue using that pathway and use the Beis HaKnesses as a shortcut. So one shita says if he enters the shul for a different purpose, then he may continue walking to the other side, even though it results in shortening his way because he hadn't gone with that intention. According to the second shita, if there was already a pathway there beforehand, then he may use that pathway as a shortcut, even if it's through a shul. If one enters the shul, he is spalal to daven. So once again, the similar concept. If he enters to daven, he may certainly walk through the other side, and even though it results as a shortcut. When they would come to the home of Hashem, so they would enter through one direction, and they would serve Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, but then they would exit through the other direction, even though it ended up being a shortcut. Continues the Gemara, certainly one is not meant to spit in the Har Bayis. This is a kal v'chomer. If a kapandraya is prohibited, certainly spitting, which is a greater level of bizayon, certainly that's prohibited. Amar Beber Amar Shua ben Levi Kol harekik b'Har Bayis bizman hazeh, even nowadays when the Beis HaMikdash doesn't exist any longer, ki'ilu reikik bavas einai, it's as if he spit it into the pupil einai of Hashem. Shenamar v'hoya einai v'libi sham kol hayomim. My eyes and my heart will be there all the days. Einai v'libi sham, even after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, my eyes and my heart are still there. Therefore, if one spits in the Har Bayis, it's akin, it's equated as if he spit into the eyes of Hashem. So one is meant to refrain from doing so even nowadays. Amar Rava, Rikika Beis HaKnesses Sharia. Spitting in the Beis HaKnesses is permitted. Why? Midid Avan Iminal. Just like walking into the Beis HaKnesses with shoes is permitted, and therefore spitting is also permitted. Why? Ma Minal B'Har Bayis Osir Beis HaKnesses Mutter. Just as Minal, shoes, although in the Har Bayis is Osir, in a shul it's allowed. After Kika B'Har Bayis is Osir. Same thing regarding spitting. In the Har Bayis it's prohibited, but Beis HaKnesses Shari is permitted. Only our Papa Rava. He challenged them. V'amri, some say, was Ravina who challenged Rava. V'amri Ravada Masla Rava. Why are you deriving it in this fashion? Adiyolf and Minal Leilif B'Kapandraya. Instead of learning Rikika, spitting, you permit it because you derive it from the heter of Minal. Just as you're allowed to walk into a shoe with a shoe, so you're allowed to spit in there. Why don't you learn a Isser, a prohibition from Kapandraya? Just as one cannot use the shul, Beis HaKnesses, as a shortcut, even though it's only a shul. So derive from there regarding Rikika as well, that is prohibited. So why go in this direction and be mater, go in the other direction and be an aser? Amar lei, so Rava responded, Tana yana from Minal. Let's take a look at the Tana. The Tana learns from Minal. But Amar is Kapandraya, and you say that I should learn from Kapandraya? Says, well, Mahi, where do we find this Tana? The San is we learned. Leikonas Adam Har Bayis, Leibemak Lishbil Yadeh, not with his staff, Leibeminal Lishbil Ragle, Leibemois, Hatzurun Leibesadinai, coins, money that is wrapped in his sadin, in his sheet, Ufendasai, in his money belt, his money belt, he shouldn't, again, he shouldn't go to the Har Bayis with money wrapped in his sadin, or his money pouch, which is slung behind his shoulders. He shouldn't turn the Harbayis into a shortcut. And certainly not spit there. What's the kavachayim? If we find that minol is not really derech bezoyin, the Torah says, Shalna lechem al arglecha. The Torah says, this is Hashem speaking to Moshe, remove your shoes from your feet because the place that you're standing on is a makam kodesh. So certainly, if a minol is not meant to be worn in the Harbayis, even though it's not really bezoyin, certainly spitting is prohibited. Rikika shederech bezoyin, which is a degradation like kolchkin, certainly it's asr on Harbayis. So we see that the Tana compares one to the other. We compare rikika to minol. If in the Harbayis minol is asr, so rikika is also asr. But regarding our case of Beis HaKnesses, since minol is mutter, rikika is also mutter. So this is the basis for my leniency. Rabbi Yosef B'Yehuda Omer ein tzarich. We don't need to derive rikika from minol. Harayu Omer kein lovel shar melech v'v'shak. This is Megillas Esther. We're not meant to approach the gateway of the king's palace wearing a sack, clothing, levush sack, enclosed in sack. We can derive from a kavachayim. Oma sack she'ein amos. Certainly a sack which is not repulsive. And what is it speaking about over there? It's speaking about a human king. Kach, one is meant to conduct himself with proper respect and not wear the sack. In that context, rikika regarding spitting shema usa, which is repulsive, and also number 2, lifnei melech malcham lachim, in front of Hashem, the King of Kings, in the Harbayis lekoshkin, certainly one is meant to refrain. So this is the machlekes in the Brachos. What is the source for the halacha of the prohibition to spit? According to Tanakam, it's learned with the kavachaymer from the Isser Minol. According to Rabbi Yehuda, learned from the pasuk in Megillas Esther. So this is Rava's response. I derive the Isser Rikika from the Isser Minol, therefore only when these are Isser Minol, but in the Beis HaKnesses, since the Isser Minol is not applicable, so too Rikika is allowed. Omar Leis, he told him, no, Anohachi Kamina. This is what I mean to say. Let's say that in both cases we'll be stringent. In the Harbayis it's Asr, in the Beis HaKnesses it's Asr. Why? Let's say as follows: Harbayis is Asr b'minol, and Harbayis where minol is Asr, wearing shoes is prohibited. Lulfa b'minol. Then we can derive the Isser Rikika, the Isser to spit, from the Isser Minol. If minol is Asr, certainly Rikika, which is more repulsive, is Asr. If minol is Asr, which doesn't involve bezayin, certainly Rikika, which is a derech bezayin, which is repulsive. Aval Beis HaKnesses, the Shari b'minol. But a Beis HaKnesses, where there's no Isser to walking with a minol, fine, so let's not learn from minol. Adiyol of minol leheter. Rather than go learn from minol to be matir rikika, if minol is asr, so rikika is asr, don't go in that direction. But rather, nail of mekamadraya le'asr. Why don't you derive from the halacha kamadraya? Just as a shortcut is asr, even in a shul. Same thing regarding rikika. So why do you go in that direction and matir? Learning from this direction asr. Elam Rava says the following is the basis for my heter. Ki beisai. We compare the Beis HaKnesses to one's home. Ma beisai, just like in one's home. Akapandraya kaput inish. A person is particular about not turning his house into a shortcut. Arekika mino loy kaput inish. However, regarding spitting and wearing shoes, a person is not particular. Beis HaKnesses also demand the same degree of respect. Kapandraya da'aser. Making it into a shortcut, that is prohibited. But Rikika, spitting minol, wearing shoes, shari is certainly allowed. So that is the basis for my heter. So in conclusion, regarding a kapandraya, regarding minol, regarding Rikika, a kapandraya, which is a shortcut, that is asr in the Harbayis, is asr through a shul. There are some exceptions. If one enters Amanasha Loila Soisa kapandraya without the intention of turning it into a shortcut, in that case he may continue, even though he's going out to the other direction, and it will result in shortening his path, shortening his route. The second case was if there was a shvil mi'ikari, if there was a pathway in that location before they built the Beis HaKnesset, then he may continue using that area as a shortcut. Regarding minol, in Harbayis it's asr. In a Beis HaKnesset, it certainly is mutter. Regarding Rikika, Rava maintains that although in Harbayis it's mutter, it's asr, But in a Beis HaKnesses, it's mutar, because we equate the level of respect for a Beis HaKnesses to the same level of respect that a person would apply to his own house. And certainly a kapandraya, one doesn't make his house into a shortcut, but regarding rikika, since one is not particular regarding that in his house, one need not be concerned regarding rikika even in the Beis HaKnesses.